Not since Winston Churchill assumed office has a new British Prime Minister faced greater challenges. Boris Johnson is almost certain to be confirmed within a couple of hours as the new Conservative leader and therefore as Prime Minister. His task is, of course, to make Brexit happen, despite having no parliamentary majority, a mutinous frontbench and an EU that's determined to punish Britain for having the temerity to leave. But he has two things going for him. He believes in himself and he knows what he wants to do, to get out of the European Union if necessary with no deal. These indeed are the two essential prerequisites of leadership. First, you must have confidence in your own judgment. And second, having come to a considered position on an important subject, you must be prepared to see it through. A leader, after all, actually has to lead. The leader's job is not to do what he's told, but to work out what needs to be done and then to do it. These are the characteristics that the current Prime Minister, Theresa May, has so disastrously lacked. Having said correctly that no deal was better than a bad deal, she was completely unprepared to walk away from negotiations and ended up accepting a very bad deal indeed that would have left Britain a virtual colony of Europe, accepting nearly all the EU's rules without any say in their making. To have ended up with May's deal would have been an epic humiliation for the country that within living memory saved Europe from the monstrous tyranny and which arguably has had more impact on the modern world than any other. Thinkers, leaders, parliamentary democracy and the common law, all that in the past would leave Britain nothing more than a vassal state under Theresa May. Now, mind you, in her defeatism, Mrs May has faithfully reflected the view of the British elites who almost seem to revel in their country's embarrassment as they've copped rebuff after rebuff from the bureaucratic princelings of Brussels. And here comes hope. A bit like Donald Trump on the other side of the Atlantic, Boris Johnson is a colourful character with a messy private life. But whatever you think of President Trump's personal integrity, he's shown a great deal of political integrity in actually getting done, sometimes chaotically, all the promises he made to the American people at the election. He's cut taxes, boosted jobs, stood up to China's intellectual theft, boosted defence, got multinationals to stay or indeed come back to the United States, pulled out of the Paris Agreement, moved the embassy to Jerusalem and is doing his best to build the wall over congressional obstructionism. If Johnson turns out to be a British version of Trump, that would be no bad thing, because people are sick of the blancmange of politicians who don't say what they mean and don't do what they say. Britons don't need a saint in number 10 Downing Street. What they need is a leader, one who believes in Britain more than he craves the approval of the European elites and the British chattering classes. In writing movingly and insightfully about the City of London when he led it as Mayor, Lord Mayor, for a good 8 years, and about Churchill, the last British PM to confront an existential crisis, Johnson may have given himself the best possible preparation for the hardest of jobs at the hardest of times. He will, of course, have to be tougher with Iran than his predecessor, because no country should be able to seize a British ship going about its lawful business without dire consequences. He will have to reach an accommodation with Nigel Farage so that the Brexit parties can have a united front in any snap election. Above all else, he will need to let the British people know that he has a plan to get them out of the EU while maintaining and increasing Britain's strength and prosperity. As soon as possible, Australia's Trade Minister should be on his way to London, offering a fast-track free trade deal between us and the world's 5th largest economy. In a few hours' time, should he take the leadership as expected, instead of radiating indecision and defeatism like his predecessor, Johnson must radiate confidence and conviction. After 3 wasted years, he really is the last and best hope of the Conservatives. And it's absolutely in our interests too that he succeeds, because democracy becomes very hollow if the people vote for something like Brexit and the politicians do them over with parliamentary parlour games. Britain back to being Britain, good for Britain, but also very, very good for the rest of the world.